Hello everyone, welcome to another one of our, well, it's not really a lockdown live chat now, it's a post-lockdown live chat. I'm Celia Hogan and this is Rachel McFedries, and we're going to be here chatting with you today about resetting screen time post-lockdown. So first up, we'll just do a quick intro so that you know who we are, what we do. I'll hand over to Rachel first. Rachel.
Okay, thank you. So, hey everyone, it's great to be here chatting about this today, really important topic. And so for those of you who don't know me, I'm a Christchurch mum of 4. My children are aged from 7 years down to 6 months at the moment. And as an occupational therapist, I have previously worked in mental health and addictions. So over the last few years, I have gained a special interest in helping families to manage screen time in their home basically and engage their children in playtime more. So last year I wrote an e-course about that, and yeah, it's great to be here chatting today. I thought I'd just do a little 30-second talk about what occupational therapists are actually about, because
Great idea, go for it.
Yeah, it's definitely, we are a bit of an enigma. Not many people actually know what OTs are about, and that's fair enough. So occupations are things that we do in our daily life that occupy our time. So it's not all about going to work as an occupation. That's not how we view it. We view all the things that we do in our daily life that fill our time and give us meaning basically. And so for me, I'm especially interested in the occupations that children are engaged in, as in play and screen time.
Fantastic, and that's really helpful. I'm sure to lots of people, but just to hear that those are your areas, play and you know, addiction and mental health in that occupational therapy realm. So that's really cool. Thank you very much. I'll do a quick intro as well. So kia ora, I'm Celia Hogan, and I run Little Kiwis Nature Play, and we help educators and parents to get children outdoors and into nature and really connecting with their local spaces, building up resilience, improving mental health, well-being, and I'm a really big advocate for risky play, nature play, and all that good stuff, just getting outdoors. So that's where I fit in, and I guess the link is for me that I've been able to recognise that over the last period of time, screen time has been replacing a lot of play, and especially outdoor play, and that's where my kind of interest comes into this topic. So yeah, that's where we are. So what I wanted to do, just as we get into it, I'm going to ask people who are watching, we've got a few people watching, which is great, just maybe have a think about, and just put in the chat room, what are you celebrating post your lockdown time? Like, what was one of the most amazing things that happened in lockdown? Because I think it's worth celebrating that there were some good times. You know, it was hard, it was tough, but let's put a celebration into the chat room, and I'm just going to frame it up here, and then we'll come back and look at some of those chats. So we are going to be covering, first up, we just want to set up why it's important to think about screen time, and thinking about the impact on a child's brain, but also a little bit of the research. We're not going to spend a long time on there, but we feel that frames the conversation really well. And then we're going to move into the nitty gritty, which is looking at, how do we start? Where do we start if we're going to cut down screen time? What are some strategies? What kind of behaviours we can expect? And we're going to finish with some top tips that Rachel and I have come up with to just pull out some real practical things that you can go forth with. So have we got any celebrations coming in? I'm not sure if we do, but I'm going to say for me, one of my celebrations would be just simplifying life. You know, I've really appreciated that, just having relaxed, calm days. And I think we've been quite lucky to have that, but that's been one of my celebrations. What about you, Rachel?
Yeah, it was certainly, we were so blessed with the weather here in Christchurch, with it just being amazingly beautiful for the kids to be able to play outside easily.
Yeah.
And I loved seeing the relationships form between my children, actually. My
Yeah.
7-year-old was absolutely obsessed with our baby. So he carried her all around the house and would put her in the swing and that kind of thing. So that was a really lovely thing to see. Obviously they fight as well because they are siblings.
Yeah.
But there were certainly lots of moments of just being able to celebrate that.
Yeah. Cool. And I think that's really important with what we're just about to lead into now, because I think this part can be quite confronting, because it can sometimes make us feel like, oh my gosh, I'm screwing up my children, letting them watch too much screens. But, let's put it in perspective, especially following lockdown. We did what we had to do to get through. So just, be kind to yourself. This information's there as information. It is not judgment. It is what it is, what's happened. But the purpose of this is just to frame it so that we can then go, okay, well, here are some tips and ideas of how to work through that. So we've got a couple of things coming through now. We've got my tamariki playing in the mud kitchen that had sat dormant for 2 months before lockdown. So that's really exciting. Bronwyn is celebrating the self-inquiry, self-managing of both her children with their schoolwork. And that's really cool when that happens. And Kirsty is celebrating my children surviving this whole time together without too many arguments. Lots of time together has been lovely for relationships. Absolutely. And Lisa, they're celebrating having been able to get out for a good walk, bike ride nearly every day in lockdown at a time of year when we don't usually, due to it becoming dark and work in school. And I think that's it. Like, it has been lovely seeing lots of people out. So, hey, thanks for sharing those in the comments. Now, you're welcome to ask any questions in there, and we will come to those as and when. But let's kick in. So we are talking about the impact of screens on a child's brain. And I'm going to kick this off. I posted up a link yesterday on my Facebook page, and it's something that I saw a couple of years ago, and I've kind of followed his work. Nicholas Kardaras is his name, and he's an addiction expert in America. And so what he originally started studying was addiction, i.e. drug abuse, that kind of thing. But then what he started to see over the last decade is there's been an increase in people coming in with screen addiction. And so he started doing MRI scans of their brains just to see what was going on. And what he found was that a cocaine addict's brain on an MRI looks exactly the same as a screen addict's brain on an MRI. And what is happening is the prefrontal cortex, so that's the executive functioning area of our brain, it shrunk. Now, that's quite full on when we think about that. And often we have, drug addicts that's happening later in life, or, hopefully from, 20s on. So the brain is a bit more developed. But if we're getting children who are watching a lot of screens or having a lot of time in front of screens, we don't know everything yet about what that impact's going to be in their adult life. So we just really want to kind of think that through a little bit. With our brain shrinking, we don't know what impact that's really going to have. The research isn't out on that side of things yet. So
yeah, it's definitely a bit of an unknown in a way.
Yeah. And I think now's a good time to hand over to Rachel and just talk about what that impact is on, like schoolwork and life, because that's something that you will be familiar with.
Yeah. So an occupational therapist will take, what's happening with the neurological side of things and embrace it. Put it into the function. So what does it mean for the function of the child? So if a child's prefrontal cortex is being affected by screen time, it means things like they will have less ability to attend to what's happening in the classroom. So their attention skills will be less than a child that has had not as much screen time in the early years. And there are studies that definitely confirm that. And so they're less able to engage with what is happening in the classroom. They haven't got the same ability to problem solve, as their peers who have had less screen time, and so that can lead to more frustration for them because they aren't able to manage problems the same way as their peers maybe. And also another thing is that, you know, they haven't got the same ability to engage in things like sharing, cooperating, helping. Those come under the umbrella of what's called pro-social behaviours, and getting along with our peers.
Yeah.
And there are studies that have compared children who have more screen time with less screen time that show that children who have more screen time score lower on checklists for those type of things.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? And I guess the research is just going to grow and grow and grow as this generation who've been exposed to a lot of screen time grows up. And so what about the research? So I know that we've both pulled out, we've both got one of our favourite pieces of research, and it's called The Effects of Screen Time on Preschool Health and Development Study, and it was funded or partially funded by the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Social Development. So it's really cool, and we'll probably try and link that. I might be able to do that, but I think, Rachel, do you want to talk to this, and I will link that into the comments while we talk.
Sure. And it's a huge piece of work. It's a big research piece, and so we don't expect parents to go in there and read it all. It's quite intense, but it does have some key takeaways that we can refer to. And what's really good about it is that it's specific to New Zealand. So it's the Growing Up in New Zealand study, and it was based in Dunedin, and it looked at 5,000 children going from age 0 to 5 now, and it compared evidence testing that they did when they were about 18 months to 4.5, and there were some really clear outcomes that came out of that. And some of them that really hit home for me, because I have a 5.5-year-old, was that the children who had more screen time actually had a higher incidence of illness and more doctor's visits during time. And I was really quite blown away by that, because I feel like we know this stuff as parents, because obviously children who are engaged in the more sedentary behaviour of screen time aren't moving around as much. They're not playing outside as much, obviously, and getting exposed to those microbiomes outside in the soil. So we know this stuff, but to actually have it proven by research here in New Zealand is really powerful, isn't it, Celia?
Oh, it's really important, and I think we talked about this because some of those American studies, you know, like they don't have recess in their schools often, and so they're spending a lot more time in front of screens. And I kind of hope that our New Zealand statistics reflect that we're not quite at that stage. So it is really good to have something that's relevant to us, and compared to some of the statistics over there, we're not as bad as them, and so I think that's quite good. Yeah,
absolutely, and that's something to celebrate. It's also something to just be aware of, and I feel like, you know, having that information is really powerful as parents, because it can actually empower us to form our reasons why. You know, it can give us something to hold on to when we are having these struggles with our kids with screen time, and we can say, okay, no, we're sticking to our guns with this because it's important, because it means you'll be less sick.
Yes.
Just something that resonates with you as a parent.
Cool. Right, and I think we will leave that there. There is lots out there, but let's get into the stuff. This is, you know, why you're here. We are wanting to look at, you know, where do we start? So if we have, and, you know, I'm going to say that most people watching this will have increased screen time in their house. So where do we start? What do we need to be thinking about as a family? How do we start reducing those screen time hours? Rachel?
Yeah, and, you know, it can be a little bit overwhelming to start off with, but being really intentional about it is so empowering as a parent. And, you know, you guys have got this. So one of the things I really recommend is to have the first initial chat with your parenting partner. Who is that? You know, it might be your husband or partner, whoever, and try and be on the same page about where you want to be going with your screen time with your family. Sometimes there's a disconnect between what your partner believes is important and versus what you believe is important, and sometimes it can be really confronting to have that conversation if you're not on the same page, but it's really powerful to be able to sit down and have that conversation and be approaching this with a real clear intention about how you're going to manage it.
And I imagine with that, and I'm going to put in the example here, so if your partner is a gamer, a big gamer, that could be a challenge for some families.
Yeah, absolutely, and it really reflects and it comes down to a lot about what the family's values are. If this is something that's important to you, and I imagine because people are tuning in today, then it is something that's important to you. And maybe if you are finding that disconnect with your partner, then they are at a different stage of the process of change to you. You may have already come to the conclusion that this is something that you want to do, reduce your children's screen time, but they might still be at the stage of not even thinking it's a problem. So that's where one thing that parents can do is talk about the research with their parenting partner to get them on the same page. It doesn't have to be huge. Just like I said before, one thing that really resonates, that's proven by research, that you can just, you know, tell your parenting partner if they need to get on the same page as you. Yeah.
Fantastic. Great. Okay, so that's a really good starting place. So it's having that conversation with our partner, and then I guess it's expanding through to the whole family, because it's not, so if we've got both the parenting partners on the same page, or if you're solo family, single parent, you'll be on the same page because you are the page. Then it's the rest of the family, the children. So how can we start those conversations with our children?
Yeah, that's right. I'm a huge fan of getting the kids involved with making a plan. So, you know, that after that initial conversation with your partner, making sure you're presenting a united front to your children if possible, and then sitting down as a family and making a plan about going forward, looking at your family routine. And, you know, it's obviously going to be different going forward with children going back to ECE and school. There will be less time in the day that you need to fill as such. So that's a great help with reducing screen time right there. But there will still be those times when the children will be expecting to have screen time. And so looking at your family routine going forward and thinking about where you want to slot in screen time if you do, and how does it naturally fit into your day, and having a really clear plan about that is really helpful with the kids. And there are tools online that you can use for this. There's one released by the American Academy of Pediatrics, and it's called a media use plan that you can use, and I can link that in the comments. It's on their healthychildren.org website. If you do want to have a tool to work it through with your family.
Fantastic. That's a good tip.
Yeah, and so from there, you know, I would recommend using just some simple language to get your kids on board with it. You know, we know the research. We are the adults in the situation, obviously. We have researched it. So conveying that to your children in a real simple way that they might understand. It's okay to use that kind of language like, well, screens aren't really the best thing you can do for your brain. Play is the best thing you can do for your brain. And so explaining that in real clear terms to your kids, even from the really young age of toddlers, they will understand. You know, this is something I've done with my kids, and they repeat it back to me.
So do mine. It's so funny. Goes, screens aren't that good for us, Mum.
That's right. And so that gives them a lot of engagement in the plan as well, and gives them a reason why. The other thing I would recommend doing is looking at what kind of meaningful occupations your child enjoys doing. So when I talk about that, obviously the occupation we're going to be talking about is play. But what aspects of play do they really enjoy, and what do they really get into? Where do they find their groove? As a parent, you know your child best, whether they are outside digging in the mud pit like mine do, or whether they are inside playing with the toy animals, that kind of thing. So having a list or visuals of what a child likes to do instead of screen time is really powerful, because then in the moment when you're getting stressed about no screens right now, you can say, well, this is the list that we've made together. What exactly are we going to choose from that, and putting that into your daily routine of or your weekly routine together.
Yeah. So even in the comments, please share, you know, from what you can think right now about your children. What are some of their favourite ways to play? What do they enjoy doing? Put them in the chat room, and we'll just have a wee look at those. I think it's really interesting that, because we have a lot of outdoor play, and I obviously do a lot of reading about play and the outdoors. And I was just thinking about Angela Hanscom, who is the founder of Timbernook, and in her book, what's the title?
Balanced and Barefoot.
Balanced and Barefoot. Yeah, she talks about 3 hours outside every day of play, and that for me is exactly what I hope for as well. And I think part of this is also thinking about in schools, and I don't even know if it's appropriate to say this, but I think it's really important that we do ask our teachers, our children's teachers, how much screen time are they actually getting in school time? And then we can kind of work things out from there, because if they're getting 6 hours or 1 hour, it's quite a difference, and it's going to impact the home life in a different way as well. So understanding how much playtime they're getting at school and how much screen time is also going to help you as a family to kind of figure out what's going to work for you as well, because each school's going to be different and have a different philosophy as well.
That's right, and it can definitely add up over time without you sometimes realising it. And you know, that's happened to me in the past with our screen time as a family. You know, it sometimes crept into the morning routine, or I would give my phone to my youngest child when we were in the car somewhere waiting, or, you know, and then taking into account what happens at school. It can definitely add up without you realising it, and then all of a sudden you're over that 1 hour a day or 2 hours a day, depending on your age of your child. That's recommended.
Yeah.
Organization.
We've got a cool comment in the room, chat room, from Carla saying, my 5-year-old is listening. Hi, how are you doing? And just said to Carla, Mum, you might get sick from all the meetings on your computer. Totally. And I think Carla's child, I'm not sure if it's a girl or a boy, makes a really good point. You know, as adults, we are spending a lot of time on our screens as well. So, you know, our role modelling maybe is another aspect that we need to look at for our children, because if they're seeing us on screens all time, that becomes normal for them. And it's like, well, if you are, why can't I? So that could also cause some uncertainties. I think we'll probably get to that as well. But it's probably a good time to start moving on. Naomi in the comments has just said digging, hiding outside, hooking stuff up with bungee cords, Play-Doh, painting, baking, dolls. Yeah, awesome. All great stuff. Great ways of playing. So our next thing, so we've kind of looked at kind of where to start. So it's having a conversation with your parenting partner, getting on the same page, and then taking that down to the rest of the family and the children, communicating at an age-appropriate level to you know, how screens affect them, and kind of setting some guidelines of, you know, how we're going to do this. So I know you don't generally advocate for going cold turkey, so I guess it's just coming to an agreement with what those kind of timeframes are, or those goals.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And you know, the reason why I say to parents perhaps it might not be best to go cold turkey is it's really hard work. It's really we are under a lot of stress at the moment ourselves, and our children are as well. And adding something like completely taking away screen time right now may not be the best idea. It may have if we didn't have COVID and it was normal life, but I feel like it's not the right time to be doing that, just because of the fact that the children are already under enough stress with going back to school and trying to get into a new routine again. And I feel like if it doesn't work for you to have no screen time in your house, if you didn't have no screen time before COVID, then it's probably a bit much to say at the moment we're cutting it out completely. Of course, it completely depends on the individual family situation and the parents' capacity to cope with change. And that is a big one, because if we are not self-regulated ourselves, then we're not going to be able to be there for our children to help them through this change. And so, you know, I don't want parents to be thinking that, you know, it's time to just completely cut out screen time, because for a lot of families, that's just not achievable and not realistic. And it will create more stress in the home. So definitely think about doing a graded approach if you do want to cut back over time. So perhaps it can be you look at the times of the day that you might have screen time, e.g. in the morning or straight after school, or in the early afternoon if your kid's still at home, and then you cut back one of those times. Maybe the morning first, maybe the afternoon first, maybe after school first, or you just go do it every second day, or you cut back from 2 hours after school to an hour after school. And that way, having that graded approach will help to ease the transition for your family and make it less stressful.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's a great strategy. Not going in cold turkey, just thinking about when they are watching and cutting that back. Brilliant. So as we will both be aware, you know, when we do cut back screen time, we often get reactions from our children. And we were talking yesterday that often this is stuff that people don't like to talk about because, well, it can, you know, you can feel like you get a little bit judged for, you know, having your children in front of screens, and we all know that there are guidelines and things to follow. So we just wanted to be a little bit candid about how our children behave when they've had too much screen time and we take it off them. So my youngest she does some really good screen time tantrums. So if we go in and say, right, it's time TV turn off, let's say it's probably after a movie. So I find that half an hour of TV is fine for my children. But when we're getting closer to that 1 hour or beyond, you know, all hell breaks loose, and she screams and she'll just throw cushions, and she's quite a physical child, so she'll throw the remote or anything that's near across the room. And I shouldn't laugh, but like, she's quite good at it. Like, she's particularly good at it. And I can only kind of say, oh, you know, I know that this amount of screen time is going to get this behaviour. And so it's possible and quite likely that when we do cut down screen time, I'll say possible, actually, it's possible that we are going to get some of those things. I guess the difference is we're also going into a whole nother transition of starting back at school. So it could even, for some families, it could even just be an overall reset, and it's like, well, no, this is the new normal, and they actually just flow with that. That's a possibility too.
Maybe, and you never know what goes on in other families' homes, no matter what they put up on social media. Yeah.
So how about your family? How do screen tantrums go in your house?
Well, Celia, I have a very vivid memory of my children, all three of my older children, having a very intense meltdown after screen time one time, and managing that, 3 kids melting down, and they were all crying, and they were acting out. You know, I say acting out, but you know, this is just their emotional system coming out because of the fact that they have lost that connection with the TV. Hitting me, punching me, and it was really extremely horrible. And that for me was the catalyst of this has to stop, and we have to cut down our screen time. It's a really vivid memory that I have, and so please, parents, know that you are not alone. Even though we are here presenting this talk, our children are still reacting this way, as in probably you might find in your home as well.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, great. And I think, yeah, it's a really important point to acknowledge that we're all in this together. Yeah, all having these behaviours. So, yeah, I think the other thing that some of the research talks about is that, you know, different children are going to have different coping abilities and different personality types. So, for example, some children are more susceptible to having a more addictive type personalities. So some children are really going to struggle with that, and that's where some of those behaviours might come up, however they look in your house. And then other children kind of go, oh, okay, and move on. And then there's going to be the in-between. So everything is normal in this. There is no unnormal.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you can also see the difference with different types of screen time, you know, like some of the, you know, iPad games are more addictive because of that dopamine hit that the kids get when they are, you know, reaching different levels and different rewards and that kind of thing, versus, you know, a really gentle type of nature documentary, for example,
Yes.
that you're playing on the TV. So it will be different depending on different types of screen time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we've got a comment in the chat room here from Emma. Her 11-year-old will get quite angry, and she found that giving a countdown such as 20 minutes left, 10 minutes left makes a huge difference. And I totally agree. And I think that leads us nicely into some of those strategies around, you know, okay, so we have set our kind of guidelines of, you know, for our house, it's half an hour they get around dinner time. If we're having TV that day, sometimes we go without TV, but on those days we agree, we make an agreement before the TV goes on, going, okay, so just remember this is half an hour, so I will come in just before that's up and give you a 5-minute call, and then we'll turn the TV off in those next ads. Yeah. And so it's everyone agree. So we go through really each time, and I know it sounds silly, but the times that I haven't done it, and I come in, no, and that's, we can also get that resistance. So yeah, they help me with that.
Yeah, and I don't think it is silly, you know, to be talking about this at all. It's for some parents it might seem over the top, but actually it's part of parenting, and it's part of having tools up your sleeve in your toolbox to manage this extremely relevant part of our day as parents who are parenting in the digital age, really. And so it's I love the way you said that, you know, you make an agreement with them beforehand. It's definitely something that I recommend doing as well. And even going to the step of planning what's going to be happening after the screen time. So making a decision with your children beforehand, even just giving them 2 options, you know, what do you want to do after you've finished watching this program? Give 2 options, and then while they are watching their screen time, maybe you set that up for them. Just something really simple, whether it's going outside and throwing a ball around, putting the balls out or something like that, or setting up something inside for them to do. And I think one of the key parts of avoiding those meltdowns when screen time is finished is connecting afterwards. I feel like that's a step that's sometimes missed, you know, from my own house as well. So reconnecting with your children, it doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be a small moment of reconnection. Like you say, coming in 5 minutes beforehand, maybe watching the last 5 minutes with them, not being on your phone during that time, giving the children their full attention, making eye contact, having a reconnection time with them. This is called collecting your child, and it's a really important and powerful way to get them reconnected back to you, which is their place of safety, compared to their connection that they have had with the screen.
And we use that technique for longer periods, so especially, so let's say they've had a movie, you know, if we've had a movie, I think it rained, there were 2 days in lockdown that it rained, and we gave the kids a movie on those days, and yeah, it was that we came in just towards the end of the movie, sat down and, you know, put our arms around them and going, oh, tell me about who's that, and finding out about the characters and really, yeah, getting that connection. So they're also not in that zombie-like state. They're just starting to break out of that, and their eyes are moving in different parts around the room and looking to you. So yeah, I really find that one a useful tip.
Yeah, that's right, and making sure that the screen time finishes at a natural part of something that is finishing.
Yes.
So whether that is 2 episodes of whatever you're watching, or 5 YouTube videos, or whatever, making sure that it's the finish of something rather than just coming in
Halfway through.
Okay, 20 minutes is up now, 40 minutes is up, it's, you know, we need to turn it off now, because that, as an adult, we don't like that, to have our programs interrupted. So it's part of the respectful process of getting through this with your kids.
And I think that's a really good point. We have to also think from our own perspective, you know, would I like it if this happened to me in this way? So yeah, great point. Please, in the chat room, do put in any tips that you have or that you want to share or that works for your family. That could be helpful for anyone watching live now, but also because this is recorded, it will be helpful for anyone reading through the comments afterwards as well. So what we wanted to do was kind of just finish up with a bit of, so we've kind of been talking about some strategies, but also like a sum up of tips, unless you've got anything else to add before we move into sum up, Rachel. So any other key things you want to cover?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch again on when you're in that time of meltdowns with your kids, you know, I'm just going to assume that we're going to expect some of those happening. You know, it's really hard to get through that time, and making sure that you're regulated as a parent is really important to do that first. So whether that's deep breaths or walking out of the room, or whatever you need to do in order to be able to come back and be that safe place for your child, because it doesn't work when you're not regulated to be able to help your kids through that. Yeah, and it is a really difficult thing to do, but just finding what works for you to ensure that you're that safe place for your kids, and just being there for them is really, really important.
Yeah, fantastic. Cool. Right, should we, we'll get into our top tips, which will probably have some kind of strategies associated with them as well. So I'm gonna kick in with the first top tip is, if they have had a reasonable chunk of screen time, getting outside straight after that screen time for that connection is a really good place to be, because being outside in nature, it actually helps balance out our stress hormones and helps regulate emotions. So because TV and screens, they elevate our stress levels, it's a really good place to go after a period of screen time to rebalance and reconnect. That's tip number one.
Yeah.
Rachel.
So good for the sensory system, you know, to be able to feel that wind and the fresh air and that kind of thing. It's just really regulating for our sensory system, which is lovely.
Cool. Do you want to go with your tip number one?
No, I think we were sticking with your tip, Celia.
Oh, do you want to go with mine? Okay. Cool. I had also, which, you know, Rachel had said, is connect with them to turn off the TV. I think that's a really vital one, really important. And that's just actually in anything, any kind of emotions, whether it's related to screen time or anything, having some kind of connection is really important. What else did I have? Just want to reiterate, if it's too hard and you are emotionally not there and ready, just let it go and try when you're ready. You need to be able to be present and available for, you know, when you're adapting the screen time or resetting the screen time, because if you are under a lot of stress, especially as everything's happening at once, you know, we're all going back to work, we're all going back to school, but then we've got the added stresses of having to contact, trace in every shop that we go into and avoid people, and there's just so many different things coming into life. So if now's not the right time, just let it go, and find a time when you are calm enough and balanced enough, and that you've got your own emotions as much in check as we can for this time.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, you know, I guess one tip that I would put across in addition to the ones you've said is that new routines take a while to settle into. You know, give yourself maybe 2 or 3 weeks in order to be able to see changes happening. And if they don't happen straight away, don't be surprised, because children take a while to kind of be able to feel safe in new routines, and really trying to be consistent is really, really important, and consistency helps children to feel safe. And lots of change at the same time, it's going to make some kids anxious. And so having a long-term view that this will help long-term is really important for you as a parent to be able to stick at it and be there with your kids.
Cool. And I'm going to give one last tip, and that is, if possible, I think morning screen time is a really good one to try and work on, and actually get rid of if you can, because what happens is when children are watching screens in the morning, and you know that cortisol starts moving through their body, and then they're going to school, that's going to present some challenging behaviours for teachers at school, but it's also going to be hard for the child, you know, trying to manage those. So if you can, you know, try and work on swapping that time out for play. Something that we've brought in over the last couple of years is before we get ready quite early and we go to the park, often before classes start, so that the kids can have a good run around, because I also know they're going to be in the class inside cooped up, so if they can have a run around before they go there, and that's a good way of replacing any kind of screen time in the morning.
That sounds so lovely and well organised, Celia.
Hard work. I'm not going to say it's easy. Sometimes there might be a little bit of screaming to get out the door, you know, but ultimately it actually helps us all. You know, we all get some outdoor time before school. Yeah. In the summer, it's heaps easier. The winter, it is lots harder.
Yeah, and it can be a long time, especially if you have children who wake early, you know, those 6 a.m. rises. You know, it's a significant period of time.
A long time.
To leave the house to drop them off at school sometimes. And so I know it's really tempting to fill some of that time with screen time, but even just doing something little like setting up an invitation to play, a really simple one the night before, so that they can get engaged in that the next day, is really powerful. It just takes a little bit of planning and being intentional about it sometimes.
Totally. And I think you had a tip, we're nearly about to finish our time, but you had a tip about sensible screen time in schools.
Oh,
website.
So it's a wonderful website. It's a New Zealand-based website written by health professionals based in Auckland, physiotherapists, and it has different sections for parents and teachers, and it goes through the evidence talking about the relevance of screen time in schools. Is it necessary? What are the positives, which is great to see, as well as what can be some of the drawbacks. And it has a really good structure to be able to give feedback to schools. If you feel like your children are seeing too much screen time in school, it gives you a template to be able to use into the school, which is really, really helpful if you're worried.
Yeah, that is really cool. Brilliant. I think we are probably that's about time. So it's so hard to fit everything in, but I guess that, you know, the key things are the strategies, and I'll quickly sum up and interject if I get it wrong, Rachel. You know, get on board as a family unit, parents first, parenting team, and then with the children, and start cutting back different areas of the day once you've identified what the new normal looks like, and working from there, going, okay, we're going to work on this section here first, and then here, and involve your children in that. Make sure you bring in some connection when before you're wanting to turn off the screen, and then after, and making sure that you're mentally ready, mentally prepared to do this. If you can, work on the morning as a good place to start. Play, setting up intentional play.
Maybe using
in the mornings.
Maybe using visuals for your younger children if they're not able to read yet.
Yes, doing little pictures. Yeah, cool. What else did we talk about? Oh, there was so much. You've watched it. Hopefully that sums it up really well. If you're like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic, we've got somewhere to go, brilliant. That's perfect. If you're kind of thinking, oh my gosh, I need a little bit more help, I need a bit more guidance, Rachel does have her online course that she has done, so it's online, and if you look in the post, her website's there. So it's just a really great way, kind of a step-by-step process to really talk through. If you think, gosh, this is going to be really challenging, I don't have the mental capacity to just take the tips that you've shared now, that is a really great approach to take. So please go check out her website. And also you can follow Rachel on Facebook. She is the OT at home. That's your
home OT, yeah.
Yeah, at home OT. I got that slightly wrong, but that's okay. And so check her out there. And do you want to just do one kind of couple of sentence sum up, and I'll do one and then we're off?
Yeah. You know, I just really don't feel like you're alone in this. You know, it's just part of parenting in the digital age, and we're all managing it, and we're trying to manage it anyway, and you don't need to feel like it's just a battle that you're fighting by yourself. It's very topical for all of us. You know, we're all in the same boat, and there is help available if you do want it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rachel. Hey, in the chat room, just give us a word or two to say if you know what you thought of this, if you enjoyed it, if you've got some good tips, or even what that tip is, what you're going to try. So I think, what is the first thing that you're going to do and try, or who are you going to approach to talk to about this, or what, do you need to do some reading yourself? So have a think what you're going to do following this call. Thank you all for coming on, and thank you, Rachel, especially. Your knowledge is fantastic, and I think it's a really good conversation to be having, especially now. We're also, as I mentioned, we're just moving into quite a big transition stage. So children just in general could be, emotionally, things could regress a little bit. Other children are going to be fine. You're just going to see a range. So just be kind to yourselves, be patient, and yeah, we have another chat coming up hopefully next week. And that is probably going to be around play, and it's probably going to be actually more for teachers, but yeah, it's going to be about play and risky play post lockdown, and just making sure that we're not restricting children in their play because of the regulation. So we're going to look at how we can work through that and transition. There's a bit of a delay between what we're doing live and our chat room, so I'm going to just end it there, but please do come on and leave us a comment, let us know what you thought. But that is it from us. Thank you very much, Rachel. It's been great having you.
So good to be here. Honestly, I could talk about this all day, and there's so many practical strategies that parents can use in this time, and yeah, it's hard to just condense it into a small amount of time, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So get in touch with Rachel if you need any more advice, or get onto her course, and we will see you later. Thank you all. See you. Bye.